Emmanuel, you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to start my talk with two things. One sorry and one other thing. So the first one is thank you for all the guys with the blue t-shirts for organizing BSides Luxembourg. It's a super great conference. So I propose to give them a big round of applause for organizing this.
Thank you.
My second thank you would be there would be only one female speaker today, and it's for her because I think we are missing many, many women in our teams. So thank you for all the ladies that will attend this BSides. You can clap them, no problem. Huh? And if you are, thanks for her. And if you are looking for more women in your team, you can look at this project, cyberwayfinder.com. It's managed by one of my good friends, Patrick Wheeler. And actually, it's a 3-year program to bring more women into our industry. And so if you want to hire somebody and they have not necessarily IT security background, but Patrick will take care of them and bring them to the good level for your team, for you. I can use the same meme for two different things, so it's pretty cool. I'm very sorry for the title of my talk today. When I received the program, I read all the talks, and for me, it was like super long, super commercial, super something like this. So basically, if it would have been the object of an email, I would put directly to the trash because it's like very, very vendor. But for sure, I'm not trying to sell to you anything. And my last thank you would be for you for being here, even if my title sucks. So a little bit about myself. This is me, and this is a favorite picture of for my girlfriend. But on the social media, you will see more something like this, which is, I think, the best way to describe what I do. I'm trying to look for sheep in middle of llamas. I'm not saying that all my sysadmins are llamas, but it's probably something that I'm trying to look for the small differences between my sysadmins and the attackers. What I've done in my life, I started my career in Decathlon. Then I moved to Société Générale, Airbus, BNP Paribas Fortis, and now I'm working for MSSP. And this talk is basically that. I started in big company, and then to MSSP, where now I can see many, many different types of companies, from the very small ones with like 10 servers, but they still want security monitoring, and for the very big ones that start their journey to the cloud and say, okay, because we are moving to the cloud, we need to have more security, and then security monitoring. But about my current employer, today I'm off. I'm on holidays, so it's not. I'm not representing anyone. I'm here by myself, and all opinions that I will share today is not related to my current employer. So let's start with a very, very short history of our industry. Anyone knows the very first malware virus, when it happened, and the name of the virus? I can take it, yeah. For me, it's the Wabbit virus in 1974. It's a very, very simple virus. What it did, it was just replicate itself. And at this time, the computer was very, very low in memory. So at some point, it will just break the system, creating a denial of service. And after that, malware gets more and more trendy. And we had to wait 13 years to get the first antivirus. And we have the very known McAfee. They are still here. And basically what is interesting is that in this very same year, Fred Cohen wrote an article to say that signature-based technology will never work, and you cannot very predict a malware because you know it from the past. And this is true because in 1990, you have Dark Avenger mutation engine that has been released. So 3 years after the first antivirus, we have already the solution by the red team to say, okay, so I will shuffle just my code and bypass all the antivirus. And it worked. And then we say, okay, so now let's look at the network and implement more barrier for the attacker. So the first stateful firewall, 1989, application firewall in 1994, and AppShield, which is the web application firewall, in this very trendy year where internet started to boom. What we had after, we said, okay, so we block them, but still they can goes through our firewall on very common ports. So why not just analyzing the traffic and see what is wrong in the traffic? So we had Bro 20 years ago, which is now Zeek, Snot, and Suricata in 2010. And then basically what we have done as an industry is to create more and more complexity because the systems that we were monitoring were also more and more complex. So in 2005, Gartner said, okay, so now we need something to just bring all the complexities that you have putting since 15 years to a single tool so that it will resolve all our problems. And then we say, okay, but now I have everything in my SIEM, but I don't know what to look for. So I say, okay, so let's start to share IOC, let's start to share attacker techniques, and we created threat intelligence in 2010. But in the same time, in 2010, is the first time that we see Stuxnet. And it's pretty interesting because when the first time I read about Stuxnet, I was fighting another worm called Configure. Sorry, another word, Configure. So I was fighting Configure in Decathlon. And at the same time, I read about Stuxnet, which is like two different worms, but so different compared to the size, the complexity, and so on and so on. But what we forget a little bit is that in our security industry, we were people fighting since 1963, which is for me the very first time we had a threat hunter that has documented his threat hunt. And it was actually in the MIT. And they had a problem between the students that were calling, and the bill that they were giving to the student was different from the bill that you received from AT&T. And they say, okay, so we have a problem, we are losing money, and they tracked down all the students that were exploiting vulnerability in their systems to give them the bill. And it was the very first time that we had the first end documented. And basically, my talk today is about having the good people with a good process to find the bad guys. Okay, and I don't cover the last 10 years, but we went to Brooklyn. Okay, guys, you missed something, a very good talk, a keynote that is just reviewing the last 10 years. And so I give you the YouTube link here, so go there and check out. So when I talk to my friends that are not in the security field, I said that I'm kind of a spider building my web, trying to have my web right. And as soon as I have one of the string of my web that is shaking, I go out and check what's happening. This is the beautiful picture, but in reality, it's more like this. So first, we are more or less half a spider because we are always understaffed. We have many unknown on our network. We have guess. So basically, when you reach the sysadmin and say, yeah, probably it's doing like this. So you record that, say, yeah, probably it's working like this, but you don't really know. And this is what I see now from my MSSP standpoint. So I really saw that people that will contract our services, they would be like, okay, we never think about security, and we want you to come and do the security. But actually, there is many companies that say, oh, we tried, and we end up with this result. But at the end of the day, we don't know how to do, so could you please help us and do the work for us? And this talk comes from this paper, basically in late May. And honestly, how can we have something like this? Like, you've lost control of your SIEM. Like, it's like a car. You've lost control. You are going to the wall. And I'm not challenging the paper. The paper is very good. But I think there's a trend in this industry. From 1 or 2 years, we are more and more criticizing the SIEM. And we have tweets like this, like, you are no longer being poisoned by a toxic load. Oh, after you get rid of that SIEM, you struggle for 3 years to get running, but never offer you any value. So it's one tweet, but there is others. If you go on Twitter, you're going to find many people criticizing the SIEM. Or this one is pretty interesting because it starts to give an answer. Like, organization, help, my SIEM deployment failed. We hear SIEM is a dead tech and so on and so on. Well, have you tried using it? What? Should I just deploy the tool and have results directly? But no, it's not that easy. And my favorite tweet about SIEM is this one. Plus 1,000 points for Derek Armstrong. Like far too many InfoSec projects, most security issues are first a people and a process problem. Technology is a distant third. I cannot agree more. So today we're going to talk about the process and the people behind the SIEM. And when it comes to process, I worked in a very, very good company, very, very good at process, is Airbus. I've been appointed to be working on a fantastic product, S330. And basically what I've been doing is fixing this piece of the aircraft that is hiding all the connection between the wings and the body. And so I started my day at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I have my boss that gave me like the paper and said, okay, so today you're gonna screw 12 screws. Okay, so and what I do next? Probably take 20 minutes. I said, no, it's enough for your day. So I was very skeptical. I said, okay, so the first point in the procedure was get your tool right. Do you know how many screws there is on an aircraft and how many different screws there is on an aircraft? The answer is way too many. Way too many. And the problem is this part of the aircraft here is very on the outside and is like a lot of strength that is going in all directions in this piece. So you need to set it right, because otherwise if it goes during your flight, you're not very kind of happy of that. So you get your tool right, and then you have a procedure for that, and to be sure that you have the right screws, because 1 millimeter can cause a disaster. Then, because you're going to work on the wing of the aircraft, you get to prepare yourself and to be right on the safety. Then you are being controlled by your buddy. So your buddy is busy on another part of the aircraft. You ask him to come, they check you, you can go. Then you screw your 12 screws, 20 minutes. And then you ask your buddy to control again your work. And then at the end of the day, you need to chase the certification body that is filling all the forms and saying, okay, this aircraft is good for flying because I have checked it completely. So basically, at the end of the day, it's 8 hours to cruise 12 screws. But if you want to travel, they are reaching this very, very, very low level. And I think it's kind of inspirational to say, okay, this industry, they have put so many controls. And at the end of the day, they can claim that you are the safest way to travel. And it's kind of interesting. And I even read a study that said if you eat peanuts during all the flights, you will probably you have more luck to die because you have diabetes than because you have traveled in the aircraft. I don't know. Let's check if it's true. Okay, but I think one of the main problems that I see from again a MSSP standpoint is people that say, oh, we need security, we're going to jump directly to security monitoring because it's super trendy, it's super cool. But basically, here you have security monitoring, but you have 5 other controls before, according to CIS. And if you don't start to know what you have in your network, if you don't have your vulnerability scanning, if you don't manage your administrators, and you don't have a secure configuration, then I think you have some homework to do before going for security monitoring. And we see so many companies come in and say, oh, please monitor my network. I don't know what is inside. I don't know if it's secured already, but still monitor. If you find something, just let us know. I think it's the wrong approach. And if you want to consider security monitoring, start first by doing your homework, and get right the 5 first CIS controls. So let's assume now. I want to reference a very good tool to know where you are against the CIS controls. It has been done by Security Enclave, so it's very easy. Excel files, you fill in, you answer the questions, and at the end you have a risk score. It's super well made. You have one for managers, non-technical, and one for security professionals. So let's assume now we are right, and we have reached control number 6. Woo! Congrats. So we start our journey for security monitoring, and I have been lucky enough to start this journey with my current employer. So yeah, we know nothing about security monitoring. Please start something. So I started what I call the pyramid of joy. So, and I start to slice all what I will do in the near future. And I start by saying, okay, so what we need first is a platform to collect all our logs. But it's not enough. Okay, so most companies start here. Like we have the platform layer. But what you need is to have the device layer. The device layer is the configuration and the maintenance of all the devices and be sure that all your devices is talking to your SIEM. But it's not enough. You will have the data layer because your device is talking to your SIEM, but do you have the right data and the data that is interesting for you? And at the end, only, you have your detection layer, which is all your rule that is getting value out of your data. And basically, having this approach, it resolves a lot of problem because every time we had a problem, we say, well, wait a second, step back. Where the problem is coming from. Is it coming from the detection layer, data layer, device layer, or platform layer? And then we apply that to three broad categories: people, process, and technology. So we're going to start with the people. So first, what type of people you need for detection layer? For sure, security background, because they will create the detection, but also they will respond to the alarms, to the security incidents. They need to be curious because they will create the new detection and you will rely on them pretty much heavily for the new threats and for the new techniques. The second is the data layer. And I think it's the most complicated layer because you need to go outside of your SOC and start to talk to all the manager of the company to get your data. So you need somebody from the company, probably if it still exists 10 years in the company, and start to say, okay, come in my team and you will talk to people so that we can get the data that we need. On the device layer, it will work mostly on tickets, but it will have to know more or less all the type of IT components that you can have, like network or systems. And at the end, platform manager, just like a sysadmin, and you will have all the skills you need. So after, depending on the budget that you're going to have like more or less staffs. And this is different scenarios that I would propose. If you have two staffs, I have a security analyst and a sysadmin, and you say, okay, security analyst, take care of the detection layer. Sysadmin, take care of the data, device, and platform layer. Three staff, take with the data manager. Because one of the key success of a security operations center is to be able to talk to everybody, to have the good connections. So I think it's a very key person in your SOC. 4 staff, double the security analyst. 5, start to have a device manager that will monitor permanently if the device is talking to your SIEM. 6, more security analysts, because probably more incidents. 7 staff, I think you reach the level where actually you need a second sysadmin, because if one goes on holidays, then you want probably to have somebody else to back up. Let's talk about process. So we won't go like this and comment these big pictures, but we're going to slice it from the detection layer, the data layer, the device layer, and the platform layer. And just this slide is about showing all the connections and that all the connections are integrated. I will publish it on my my GitHub account right after the talk with the presentation and also this image. But we're going to go quickly on the 4 layers. The first thing that you need is to allow your analysts to have time to go and watch YouTube videos. This talk is recorded. Thank you, Cooper. And many talks are recorded by security enthusiasts. So if you can allow them like 1 hour, 2 hours going to YouTube, watch videos, it's a super cool job. You can watch video YouTubes during your working hours, but then let them explore all the new techniques. Could be red team, blue team. And so this is the start of your process. You have a bright guy that has a good idea. The second way to start the process is to have a business use case. And then the first thing that we ask to our security analyst is to record it. Even if it's just an ID, okay, you go to the knowledge database, you record your ID, and then you don't lose track of it. Then you look at the data. Do we have already the data that we need in the SIEM? If not, trigger the other layer. and call the data layer owner and talk to him and say, okay, basically we need this data to make our detection work. Can you get it? Yes, no. And then it's a kind of feedback session between the two analysts. Then you implement it in your SIEM, and then Airbus deformation. You ask a quality review from somebody else in the team to be sure that the detection is aligned with the objectives that you have stated when you have created and started the process. Okay, you did the final change, and you communicate to all the team. Then you move to operational daily operations. Daily operations is a bit out of the scope of my talk, but still, if you are interested, there is a very, very good book. I do recommend everyone to go and have a look at it. It's Crafting the InfoSec Playbook. It's starting to be a bit old. It's missing the part where you need more controls about your detection. So the tools like Caldera and automated red teaming, I think this is one part missing, but still a very good tool. So then your rule of the detection is start to new when it's only the ID. You move to in progress when you are all the peer review. Deployed when it's in production. And I think what is interesting is if it gets wrong, being too noisy, not very aligned with the objective that it stated at the beginning, move it to assign, and the guys that designed the rule has to fix it. So that you're not suffering from a lot of alarms that nobody cares about, but just you assign it and you ask people to fix it. You can retire it if it's very related to a campaign. So you say, okay, we have this bunch of IOC, but probably in 1 month it will be another bunch of IOC, so retire the play. And at every point you can reject it, but you keep track of it for audit perspective. The data layer, it's more simple. So we see that it started from the other layer, which is the detection layer, and you have this peer review. It's kind of important because your data management layer, your data manager, he will know exactly what data is inside. Then I think one of the most difficult job is to standardize and to label all your data, because if one of your analysts say, okay, I'm going to work on failed logons, but what is failed logons for a Windows system? What is a failed logon for a web application firewall? So it's every time different type of logs, but you need to standardize it and label it properly. Then, very key, having everything documented in the knowledge base so that you can easily push it directly to the asset owner. Say, basically, if you are the Windows admin, this is what we need to make our detection work. And also, you can push it to your control, number 5, so that should be already implemented. And to say, okay, please check that the configuration is correct for our detection to work. And then you have this connection to the bottom layer, which is device. So every time you scan and you find a new asset, you can have a peer review with the data manager. Say, okay, do we know already that we have this technology in place? Do we have the data for that? Yes or no? Initially, we put it directly here, but then we kind of start to discover shadow IT, and then you don't want your data manager to start spending time on something that will be shut down in a question of weeks. Process layer. So here, CIS number 1 and 2, asset and software inventory. You prioritize your assets. You have a strong procedure about onboarding and offboarding your devices. And then you monitor that it's always talking to your SIEM, and also trigger the secure configuration if you see that some data is missing from your devices. Finally, the platform monitoring has an access to this layer to say for any let's say 2 noisy devices that put at risk your platform, you can say please offboarding. Finally, the platform layer, I'm going to very quickly on this because it's where everybody succeeds. So initial installation, you monitor the health and of your platform. You have the change management, incident management, and it's pretty basic IT. Just in case of a very noisy device or not responding device, just talk to the device layer. Finally, the technology. Basically, the technology, I think if you have a bunch of money, this is not where you should spend too much money, but more on the people level and ask for more staff than for tools. Because honestly, you can do many things for not that much on your system. You can deploy bits, WASU, OS query plus Collide Fleet. It will monitor your endpoints and all type of servers. On network, you can have Suricata, Zik, or Snort, and even open firewall if you need it. You put everything in an elastic and Logstash database, which is a kind of Splunk but cheaper, but which is not difficult. Or Greylog. Greylog is free until 5 gigabytes, 50 gigabytes per day. Have a knowledge database is super important. You can use MediaMickey. It works well because it's super scalable. And also, as soon as you bring somebody in your team, he knows how it works. It's Wikipedia. Presentation system. Greylog have its own onboarded, but if you use the Elastic Stack, you can use Kibana. And then you need a ticketing and a case management system. Anyone knows a very good case management system? The Hive. Sorry, I thought there was some French here, so yeah. I'll try again. So a very good threat intelligence platform for free. Mist, thank you. So yeah, and you have your Mist platform. And basically, if you have this, it won't cost you a lot. So this is the end of my talk. It's a process, so it works for us. Doesn't mean it will work for you, but just if you have problems, apply the pyramid strategy. I think it's the best way to solve your problems. Try the process, implement it, try if it's work, write your procedure, and if it doesn't work, just change it. And just to conclude this talk, I'm not very good at conclusion, so I just say, like far too many InfoSec projects, most security issues are first a people and process problem. Technology is a distant third. Thank you.
Okay, so is there any question? So, as explained during the introduction, we have 15 minutes. So we asked the different speakers to reserve 15 minutes to have interaction with the audience.
Morning. All right. First, a quick feedback note, unwelcome or welcome, I don't know. The last 10 minutes of this presentation were approaching valuable to me. The first part of it was totally, I could have stayed in bed. Sorry. The last part, the last 10 minutes where we got into actual SOC and SIEM talks and content was getting almost relevant. Especially the last slide with the different tools is interesting, and we can debate that. You skipped on the slide before that, or the slide before that, for go back a step. And one more. And one more. That one. On this one, you have device onboarding and offboarding, but on the next slide you had change management. On this one you don't. And on this one you skip the concept of cloud and self-provisioning, auto-provisioning entirely. Please comment on change management in the context of this slide and on cloud.
Okay, so for your first remark, so you know that I'm the very first speaker of the day, and when I designed this talk, I said, okay, probably people will be late. I mean, because I'm coming from Spain and people don't arrive at time. So if I put directly interesting topics at the very beginning, then probably people that arrive late, they will miss the interesting things. So it's always difficult to be the first speaker of the day because you don't know if the room and people will be here, if people will be taking coffee. So, but honestly, it has been well managed by the guys because we are all on time, but I cannot predict that. So indeed, it's on purpose that I spend time on doing history as things that probably you already know. Then the question about change management here. So for me, change management, you do it here. Okay. So because you are pushing your new configurations to the asset owners, and then the asset owners has the responsibility to implement the right settings to get the information that you need. And it's a problem of this team. Okay. And for the cloud, I think it doesn't really change anything because you're here at the beginning of the process. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. At the beginning of the process, when you scan, you can also scan your cloud and see if there is any new assets, any new. Sorry, I didn't get right your question, but every time you provision something, you're going to be billed for. So basically, you can also look at how much you are billed and see what is in the system. And I think if something is not labeled or you don't know what it is, then it's you need to take action on it.
The challenge is, once you start using cloud systems that can auto-provision, scale up, scale down, then how do you do configuration management? How do you have that single asset repository with up-to-date information on every asset you have? Even if you auto-scan, it will be out of date or wrong within minutes, even seconds. How do you do some kind of vulnerability scanning? Do you even need to do vulnerability scanning on a server that is provisioned and maybe runs 24 hours and then it's gone forever after? And these are really important questions, at least to me, in the context of your presentations.
Yeah, so for vulnerability management, I think, you can scan, depending on what you have defined as the right interval between your scans. But indeed, it's a problem. I'm not challenging that, and it's difficult to do. But for asset management, I do think that if you are in the cloud, you do have one advantage is that you're going to be billed for the assets every time you start a new server in the cloud. You will be billed for it, so you can wait the end of the month until it's 1 month, but you will know exactly what you have. And the second point is, there is one disadvantage: that you don't have any gatekeeper, because everybody that has admin access to your cloud can set up at any point of time a new server, and in this case, it's a kind of process. And be sure that people follow this process to be aware that any new server will be recorded, and you will be informed of that. I don't think that you are very convinced, but it's a very good question, and if Frank can talk more about it, no problem.
Hello. So I really appreciated your talk on the other end, because I started at my first job as a SIEM engineer in a bank at Luxembourg, and people told me, okay, you need to implement a SIEM, but I had no process to start with. So you're right here trying to think, okay, in terms of technology, what technology should I choose, and so on, and you forget the most important aspect, which is the people, because integrate a SIEM is speaking to all the different teams in IT. Deciding how will you keep the log, share the log, because it can be interesting for other teams. And I think and for us, for this feedback, we were 2 engineers working on this project. I was working only on the process and people, and my other colleague was working on the technology aspect. But it's to say that it's really important. So that's why I think, and back then I would have really appreciated a talk like that to detail this step, and I hope that we put it online. But then the only aspect is, I think it speaks a lot about the process, but the really difficult aspect is really to go to the team, to sell your project, to see, to make them see the points, and to make them buy the project. And I think that's an aspect that was missing in your presentation, but overall, I like the process that you detail.
Thank you very much for the good feedback. Indeed, and I think probably everybody experienced it. We are in a job that is so political. And I think it's something that we need to change as an industry completely, and we need to get rid of all discussions that start off with because of the hacker, or because it's bad, or just saying no to projects, and more to be there. So, okay, I understand what you want to do, what you want to achieve. I embrace completely the goal of the company, but I just want to give you like good practice guidelines, and we can work together, and you can challenge us, and and then the objective for you is to get like your 80% of really what you want to be achieved, and let down like 20%. That will make the difference between thing that this security team in the corner that is always saying no, and we don't want to talk to them, to somebody like, yeah, you will be inside the team and consider as a somebody that is adding value. Thank you for the nice words.
no more question. I also like it, and for me, one key aspect is the data layer, because it's something that we often say your system is as good as the data you put in it, and for me, it's still we are in another loop because if you take the last slide with all those technologies, we have this issue of data quality at every single tool, like. MISP is a great platform, but if someone put 8888 in your MISP event, then your SIEM is going to go crazy. And trust me, it happens a lot. We got in our everyday job like Microsoft.com, Google.be, 8888 in events, they are pushed. And so what would you do to avoid that kind of issue?
Yeah, so I didn't talk too much about threat intelligence and go into detail, but what I think, and I think MISP is a great tool for that, you need to have communities at different levels. So if you build a trusted communities and you know personally the people and you can go and say, yeah, I know this analyst, he pushed this, I can trust it 100%, and you have like this top community and you don't check anything and you push it directly to the SIEM because you have built this community with companies that are similar to yours and behaving in the same type of industry, and then you can trust it and push it directly. For others that you don't know, it's open source, it's somebody in the other side of the planet, then there is always a quality review, and it's more used for incident response and querying the threat intelligence platform than for doing data enrichment. More water.
But just another aspect I would add is when I was implementing the SIEM, so we did that on our in our team. But at some point, somebody say, "Hey, did you check the working console?" So the syndicate, syndicate is a company, because they may have something to say because you're collecting data from the other employee as well. And after 1 year of development, the people were saying, yeah, we need to take care of PII, so personal identifiable information. So you know the name, first name, and so on. So for people who will not complain that, when they log in on the machine, basically. And back then, we got a feedback saying, okay, you need to remove every IP from your SIEM. And and that was clear, and it has to be done. So just saying that also this aspect is important because to handle this problem technically, we had to double our architecture. We had to, for every component we have to send the hash version of the IP, the real version, and to set up an alarm. But if someone connects to the SIEM with the real IP, we should alert the security team. But just to say that the regulation and the people within the company are also a huge struggle to implement a SIEM. So to say that the technology is really the easiest part. It's really everything which is around, which is the difficult.
Yeah, and from the legal perspective, I think then we need to get out of all the emotional aspect of being, there is a SIEM now in the company, so I'm being spied. And so that's, in your procedure, in your process, there is very strict guidelines that respect the law. And if there is still problems, you can just mask and replace the value by something else. And this is also what we do in the cloud to avoid we just swap the data by another one, but we are still able to recover at the end of the day.
Thanks for sharing that. That was as fantastic as GDPR requiring the Whois databases to stop showing the email addresses of the people registering domains. It's something that, when implemented, actually hurts security for any company or any researcher. And in the context of GDPR, I would not recommend, from my personal experience and everything I've been reading, and I read a lot, that you actually go ahead and remove the IPs. Instead, if you're talking to lawyers in a situation like this, go with all the other ways that GDPR has for you to get approval to do this, because you need IPs in your SIEM. How are you going to correlate anything with your perimeter devices if you don't have IP addresses? What use is a forward or reverse proxy if you don't have the IP addresses? You will be stuck multiple times throughout the SOC processes if you don't have the IPs. So GDPR gives you ways to do this. If you have a valid business reason, contractual base, consent, you can go ahead and you can store all of this. You can even like get some kind of security clearance for your SOC operators, the system administrators who can log on to the server as well. And there's so many ways to get approval for storing some kind of PII that I would definitely pursue instead of just giving in to some lawyer and telling him, okay, we'll remove IP addresses and use a hash.
Thank you.